This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast, with George Doubinski, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean, the CRM Hobbit Tabor.
Well, guys, we're back for episode 3. This is the premiere episode of CRM News with Sean Tabor.
Thank you, Joel. In today's news, we have 3 top stories. The biggest one of all is the Microsoft executive shakeup over on the Dynamics team. In this week's company-wide reorg, Dynamics got carved up a little bit. We saw Kirill Tardanov leave the team, and the actual Dynamics teams are being moved under the Cloud and Enterprise group, which is in line with their cloud-first strategy. And I think it's going to offer us some really good opportunities for the growth of the product going forward. Next up, we have a new announcement for the LinkedIn Sales Manager integration. The LinkedIn tool now connects with Dynamics CRM and gives you a lot more information on those LinkedIn contacts and bios directly into your CRM. Now, one of the downsides for customers, you have to have the team level of LinkedIn, so it's a little bit more costly. It doesn't really give you all of the functionality with just a straight-in plain LinkedIn subscription. And lastly, we have the first CRM Apple Watch app came to us from Salesforce. Salesforce launched not only the wearables SDK, but the Apple Watch app for their Apple Watch, and a BI interface for their Wave product. They're more bleeding edge in this reporter's opinion, but it's interesting to see a little bit of disruptive technology in the CRM space using the Apple products.
To start with, the first news is kind of nerd revenge because finally CRM development is moving under an idol of mine as well as other developers, Scott Guthrie, or Scott Goo. He's known in .NET world. He's the man behind .NET. He's the man behind Azure. But I'm just looking at the news. I'm not reading it as Dynamics being moved under Cloud and Enterprise. I'm reading that development team is going over there, but I think Dynamics stay where they are.
Yeah, we really still have the same team management from Bob Stutz on down. It's just they report up to there. And I think reading the tea leaves and looking at like what Mary Jo Foley and others are saying, some of the most exciting, to me at least, is the implications for CRM Online and Azure. What can happen there, because for so long these have been separate things, really, and I think there's a ton of benefit of them coming closer together. And we'll talk on a future episode about some of the things that are coming with the ability to deploy CRM on-premises to Azure coming and things like that, that, again, I think are really exciting for people who don't want to be public cloud but still want to be cloud. And looking at like Azure storage prices compared to CRM Online storage prices, just all the different things there that this kind of clarifies the vision, I would say.
Yeah, and what they're saying is Mike Ehrenberg and Bob Stutz remain within the Dynamics team for ERP and CRM, but they both now report up to the C&E chief. So that's the interesting part of the shakeup. So that's how I was going with the Dynamics is now going up through CE, because ultimately, the 2 of the biggest heads in the dynamic space are now reporting to C&E.
Yep, that's a good thing. All right, so it's the second story, the LinkedIn thing. My reaction is kind of a resounding meh, because I have a love-hate, more on the hate side relationship with LinkedIn. I call LinkedIn Facebook for boring people. Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting thing that would be fun to do. Like, what if people talk to each other in real life the way they talk on LinkedIn? Hello, Sean, you look like an interesting person. Would you mind if I add you to my professional network? I think I am not a LinkedIn fan, but I see it's kind of the thing you feel if you want to work and have a career and get your name out there. You almost feel like if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you do. But again, most of the people I know personally, when I look at their LinkedIn profiles, they're out of date. And so I question kind of the data that you're compiling about yourself, because it's only as accurate as what you put in there. And add on that it's a $1,200 per user thing for the team LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's going to limit who's going to use it.
Yeah, it's really going to be just big recruiting firms or headhunters, people that are using LinkedIn pretty rigorously anyway. That's probably where you'll see most of that penetration, I would imagine.
On Tip of the Day, we linked to a kind of an epic rant by Neil Benson, one of the MVPs, who is from Ireland. And he had some really good points about LinkedIn is closing what is possible with the free service. And so for small businesses or LinkedIn's value is diminished because they're closing the API unless you're a paid customer.
Yeah, and I had a customer actually last week ask me about this integration, and once we talked about that licensing part, they quickly lost interest.
George, what are you hearing from the other part of the world? Is LinkedIn as big a deal in Australia as it is here?
Not really.
You there, George?
There's the other one.
LinkedIn management in Australia has keyed into this conversation and is suppressing his audio.
About LinkedIn, it's used by primarily recruiters. I don't like how some people use it personally. I've got rules around LinkedIn, very easy to follow. Basically, have I met this person in business life? And that meeting doesn't necessarily mean face-to-face. I could have been on call. I have interacted with someone through emails, through calls. I know this person. Then I would honor the request. I would add this person to my LinkedIn profile. Otherwise, hello, George, I am such and such. Would you like to be part of my 500 plus network? Maybe. So, I guess it's the same. $1,200 per user. I thought it's per org. Per user, it's $100 a month. That's for any small to medium business, it's out of reach, unless their business is like recruitment.
Yeah, so if you use LinkedIn, I just don't like the interface of LinkedIn. I mean, like if you post something on there, it's like you can never see it again. And it's just, I don't like the design of LinkedIn. And I also find...
They did change something, just recently. But it's turning into a Facebook, if you ask me.
And if you look at people's resumes, you know that a certain percentage of stuff on a lot of people's stuff on LinkedIn is false or misleading. It's this resume speak. I just don't like it.
But isn't it true about any resume?
That's true, but it's like it's front and center there, I guess is what I would say. Just be real. Put what you really do on there. And the final one, the Salesforce thing, I think wearables there's a big future for them. I don't know if the Apple Watch is that future though. I have some friends who have one. Kudos to Salesforce, though, for being cutting edge. Although I will say, if I'm not mistaken, I could argue that the Microsoft Cortana integration with the Microsoft Band could technically be a CRM integration for a wearable.
It could, but the Microsoft Band hardware penetration is very, very small. It kind of moots a little of that. My biggest thing with this launch is the fact that they built an SDK. That kind of shows that they have a little bit of a commitment. And this is another one where I had another customer come up to me and say, hey, I went on the Apple Store to find out what apps I could find for my watch, and CRM doesn't have one, but Salesforce does. So
Salesforce was the only enterprise software that was there at launch.
Right.
But, I mean, it calls into question, what is it that people will really want to do with CRM on a wearable? I can see definitely what's my next appointment. I could see, seeing basic contact information, but, or kind of as a supplement to what you're doing.
Right.
I'm in a meeting, show me some related information. But, so that's where it's still just the whole idea is still unclear to me. And the things I just mentioned, you don't need a CRM integration to do those things. CRM being integrated to your calendar already and other things like that gives you a lot of that information. Having your contacts synced to Exchange gives you a lot of that information. So, I would just be curious what exactly, because I'm not going to look at a report on a watch.
Yeah, no, I think it's really more the buzz factor, right? It's less of an actual utility and more of a whiz-bow kind of, ooh, look at this, my CRM does this. So I think that's the novelty right now, but we'll see how this plays out with utility as we move forward. And we
I
get
kind
more,
of put it in the same category. I was talking today to a group of people about BI and Power BI in particular. And it's very useful, unlike, any CRM on Apple Watch. It's actually useful technology. So, but the one thing I couldn't get out of my head, that when you show pieces, traditional pieces that people use for demos, like, for example, Power Maps and with the flying through the data in 3 dimensions and things like that, those pieces are great for selling stuff.
Right.
In real life, I can hardly imagine any executive sitting there, and flying through their daily data.
I want to take an aerial tour of all my CRM customers.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's a nice to see, and I can see real applications, but I would say that any stuff about predictions, I would leave to something like machine learning, which is great, like Azure machine learning, where machines would take an educated guess on what to do next, right? So the same falls into like Apple Watch and wearable. Joel, you're absolutely right. I can see even on mine, compared to Apple Watch, simple Pebble Watch, I can see my upcoming appointment that's coming up. I can see snippets of SMS or email that it's popped in. The problem is that it doesn't replace interaction with the people. Friend of mine also has Pebble Watch, and he complained that since he got it and he's in the meeting, he's trying to, hide the fact that not picking his phone anymore. So he's not distracted. But then throughout the meeting, someone asked him, do you have to be somewhere? Because he keeps email coming and he keeps looking at his watch to see if it's like a message or email, right?
No, you got to get right. I had a Microsoft band. I did not like it. I liked the technology, but I didn't like the implementation of it. But having the tweets come in on there, whatever, what I would do is I would work in a dramatic gesture at that time so that I could be raising my hands up in front of me in frustration and could glance at it very well. So.
Oh, because it's on the inside. You wear it, so it's on the inside.
Which was one of the things I hated about it was you looked like your nerdy 4th grade science teacher that wore his watch on the inside kind of thing.
So you're flailing your arms like Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof?
Or shrugging.
Just to be able to get...
shrug works.
Okay.
High five kind of could work. Anyway. All right. We need to move on. We've
You
dedicated
bet.
too much to Salesforce already.
You bet.
All right.
Moving on.
So next, we wanted to talk about online versus on-premise. But we thought we'd try and make a little bit more dramatic. Maybe like a prize fight kind of scenario. This is like the Rocky movie of CRM Online versus on-premise. I will be portraying CRM on-premise. This doesn't mean that I am anti-CRM Online. I'm just playing a role. George Doubinski will be portraying CRM Online.
I wasn't given a choice, but I'll play for online. I mean, I love both platforms, so I think they're equally good. Now we can fight. It's not to death. Let's call it. It's a training fight.
Okay.
It's before you step on the ring with someone else.
All right, we're here live, Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada, for the epic tale of the tape, CRM Online versus CRM On-Prem. Microsoft Dynamics, War in the Desert. Up for CRM On-Premises, in the blue corner, Joel Lindstrom.
If you think online is better, your head's in the cloud.
That's some salty fighting words from the blue corner. And in the red corner, George Doubinski.
Oh, I'm gonna kill you.
A little more gorgeous George than a boxer, but we'll go for it. And now we're gonna send it over to the announcer to kick us off for the tens of listeners on the podcast and the millions on the internet. Let's get ready to ramble on about Microsoft Dynamics CRM and online and on-premise, I guess. Ding ding. First round, security.
Well, I don't think I even need to try for this round. I mean, security is my thing. I'm on premise. You can lock your environment down. You can put it just on your network. You can be as secure as you want to be. You can use SSL certificates. I got you handled when it comes to security. I don't even think I need to say any more about it.
You wish. I can pull the chair and whack you on the head with it because it's very easy. When it comes to security, it's not what you implement that it matters. It's actually the compliance that matters. And once you're into compliance world, you're going to spend hours and hours, days and months and weeks of consulting time trying to prove to a customer or to your customer that you're actually compliant with the HIPAA standard or PII, personal identifiable information, that you're not disclosing any of these, that it's all secured. What CRM Online does for you, and if you go online, and if you bother going online, I'm not sure if you're allowed to with the on-prem world, but if you are allowed, you go to Microsoft Trust Center, and you can see how Microsoft takes care of all the compliance with all the standards on your behalf. You compliant by default.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, that's the end of the first round with security. Judges have it looking even up after security. A vicious left to the jaw by Online, followed directly by a punch to the solar plexus by on-prem. Next round, we're going to move up to administration. Let's go back to the ring. Ding, ding, ding.
Well, I probably should start this round after, I would say, winning. I thought I was using chair and not the fist, but anyway, but my fists are as good as my chair, I suppose. I think in the area of administration, again, it's ease of use for online that takes the prize, because it's now no-brainer that you can have multiple instances, you can have sandboxes. The administration is just easy as point and click and select, and you're done. So again, we're talking about freeing up resources for what really matters. But
I've got Active Directory.
Me too. Hello.
Oh. Ding, 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 ding. Wow, that was a rough round for on-prem. It looks like they came out scrapping, but online relatively handled them relatively easily in the administration round. So it looks like right now the round count even up at 9-9 in the first round and at 10-9 for online. So online leading the charge right now. We're going into the third round, and that's for reporting. Ding, 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 ding.
Well, I'm gonna kick this off with the left uppercut. CRM Online, do you even have reporting? I mean, I've got T-SQL. You can access your SQL database, write a very complex SQL query. I also have this thing called Fetch XML. I never use it. I will put my T-SQL report up against your Fetch XML any day.
For this round, I'm just gonna fight like a girl by repeating something like Power BI, Power BI, Power BI.
Yeah. I want to see you make that Power BI contextual to an account. Use some pre-filtering on it. Oh, you can't.
Ding, ding, ding.
Fetch XML.
Ding, 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 ding. Wow, after that very powerful use of a chair and a punch to the solar plexus, Online running around the ring screaming Fetch XML and Power BI and arms flailing. So that round definitely goes to on-prem. So we're looking even up right now, heading into the fourth round for functionality. Back to the ring. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, I'm back in familiar territory, that is using my chair and my fist. One word, Karina. So I don't even know where to begin to say that I'm about 6 months ahead of you, Joel, on this one.
Well, let me just say, what you really want is the tried and true features. You don't want those beta features. You want tried and true, proven features. That's what I've got. Classic, baby, classic.
Yeah, well, you can stay with the classic whilst I'm running ahead with immersive Excel integration and OneNote and customizable themes and improved mobile capabilities and better navigation. Oh, sorry, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Like finally a nice navigation which sticks, where I can pin things and I can use my mouse finally without menu disappearing in a flash.
Did I mention I have SSRS reports?
Ding, 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 ding. Oh, this is like an emotional roller coaster, this fight. One round is you're up, the next round you're down on the canvas. That one clearly is going to online. Heading into our final round, troubleshooting. Back to the ring. Ding, 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 ding.
Generic SQL error. What do I do? Oh, I think I'll run a performance trace. I think I'll run a trace. I think I'll log onto my SQL server. Online, what do you do when that happens?
Oh, I call on my team that provides support.
You open a support ticket. And you get your users. What's it say? Contact your administrator. Oh, okay. Well, I'll look at the server. I'll check the event log. Online, what are you going to do?
Contact my administrator, who is me. So I'm contacting myself.
And you have a conversation with yourself while you're calling support to keep yourself occupied.
Oh, the fighters were separated right there after that low blow. One more, and you're going to get a penalty.
So I think it's clear that on-premise, on-premise has the advantage for the troubleshooting.
Well, you don't need to troubleshoot online. It works. It just works.
Ding, 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 ding. All right, we're going to go to the judges and see where we're at. With the first round going to a split decision. Second round going to online. Third in reporting going to on-prem. Fourth round functionality going to online. The troubleshooting, that's going to bring us to an overall split decision. It was an incredible fight. Each fighter has their own merits, worthy opponents each, and if we could, we'd let them share the crown. Definitely thrilling fight. Let's get some color commentary from my other judges. Joel, George, what are your thoughts on the fight?
I thought it went well. I thought both fighters brought their best game, and I think it did a good job of showing what the differences are. That it really is. It used to be so much in the favor of on-premise. It's going more so to online, but there still are some valid reasons why some customers might want to be on-premise.
I have to say that soon the boundaries will be even blurrier with the lifecycle support, something that AX people are quite familiar with, landing in CRM land. So what you will be able to do is to take your on-prem infrastructure and literally with one button push, move it to Azure. So the first part of the stack, that is hardware, virtualization, operating system, it will be taken care of by Windows Azure. And then you'll be able to put your CRM infrastructure on top of that. So you'll be able to take advantage of both worlds.
So we could have had another fighter jump in the ring and say, hey guys, you don't need to fight. I'm Azure.
No, actually what we need to do is team up and arm ourselves with chairs and go and pick up on someone like Salesforce.
Yeah, we all tag team Salesforce. Joining us now is our special guest, Mitch Milam. Mitch is a CRM MVP, and he's with CRM Accelerators. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing great, Joel. Thanks.
So, Mitch, what do you think about the move of the CRM engineering under Scott Guthrie?
Well, actually, I think it's a great idea. Everybody knows and loves Scott. He gets things done. He has a lot of people working for him that feel the same way. And if you look at the growth of Azure since he took over a few years ago, I think you can see proof is in the pudding. And having a development organization like that in place, I think, will only strengthen the CRM product from many levels.
And I think we're finally going to be taken seriously at Ignite conferences.
That's actually a secondary point there, but I think you're totally serious. Yep, absolutely.
Well, Mitch is a fairly well-known developer in the CRM community, and so I wanted you to come on because one of the news stories that wasn't in our list of topics yet was the new web API. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I'm not a developer. I put that disclaimer up front, and so, what I'm interested in is what does the new web API really mean? What does that bring us that we haven't had so far? How does that change the status quo?
So let's kind of start from the very beginning here. So this is actually a preview. It's only in CRM Online Update 1, and you have to turn it on through your system settings. And after that, you can actually create applications that will work against your CRM online instance. So what it gives us is the ability to actually perform functions over an OData feed like we used to do with the current REST feed, actually. But what they've done is they've actually extended the capabilities. With the REST endpoint that we use now with say 2011 and above, we only have access to CRUD apps, so create, read, update, and delete. What they've done is they have expanded that to work with a variety of things. So we have this typical creating, updating, reading, deleting, things like that, but we also have access now to some of the other functionalities, so like sending an email, adding to a marketing list, all of the functionality that's in the SDK, not all of it, but a good subset of the functionality in the SDK is now available to us theoretically without having to have the SDK DLLs as part of your system.
But tell me, Mitch, don't we already have this functionality? As I used to tell people what do you do? Sometimes I answer, I eat soap for breakfast. So we already have soap. We have this functionality through the soap packets. Why would I want to go to this web?
That's a good question, George. I think the real answer is this is newer and it is supported. And the other things had to be kind of generated by a tool, whereas this is going to be built into the system. So the SOAP endpoint, so like I do a lot of mobile development as well as just standard dynamic CRM development. And when you're architecting something like that, you always have to consider what is going to be my final end game. How are we going to connect to CRM? Do we have to go through a proxy service to actually get the throughput we're looking for, or have a minimal amount of impact on either the user or the developers? And this should reduce the friction of all of that to where we can do very complex operations with very little code, and very little tooling is required to actually create that code.
But what about authentication side of things? What we're gonna use? Because with SOAP, we used to hide our authentication token inside the SOAP packet, and we use only POST. So as I understand all data, now I can use GET requests. So how does authentication work with the web API?
That is the sticking point that I am not happy about personally, professionally, but this is the direction of Microsoft. So what they're using for authentication at this point in time is Windows Azure Active Directory. If you see the term Windows Azure Active Directory, what you do is you go to your Azure portal, you create a new application. It gives you a key, you put in some settings, and then you embed those into your application. And then you actually use the OAuth protocol to authenticate against the Active Directory. So it'll pop up a box. It will have you enter some credentials, say of CRM Online, for instance. And then once it's authenticated who you are, it will give you that token that you mentioned, and then everything will be using that to actually communicate. The actual web API, the new web API uses OData 4.0 as the specification. So it uses a series of either gets or puts or patches depending on what the operation is. Those are called verbs. So it's a wrapper around that. So authentication right now is through that. They have not mentioned on-premise at this point in time, but my work with previous versions of this type of thing, you would have to actually perform the same process with your on-premise Active Directory to generate this ID, and then there's a PowerShell script that actually does this, and then you would get that ID back, and again you would embed it in your application. So it's good from a certain type of standpoint. It's bad because it's a little bit more set up. Some types of applications may not be readily available to be worked on, but again, this is the way that Microsoft is heading. This is their path, and I don't think we can change it.
So if I'm hearing you right, this is not a revolutionary change. It's not necessarily anything different than something we couldn't do before. It just is potentially more standard with the way Microsoft's going, and also maybe quicker, faster to do it. Is that fair?
I think we could stick with the quicker, faster, quite honestly. Really and truly what I think this is its ability to allow us to develop applications that have a very broad expanse of the Dynamics CRM SDK without actually having the SDK DLLs. Okay? Because when you get into mobile devices, like my tool set currently is Xamarin, so that allows me to develop apps on iOS, Windows Phone, and Android. And there's a toolkit that Microsoft has for that, where they have generated the code, as George mentioned, these SOAP calls, and the code was generated, and it wraps the SOAP calls in C# code so that you can actually import those files into your solution and work with them in that manner. But that's a code generated, so that's something that has to be maintained, whereas this new web API theoretically doesn't have to have all of that. So that kind of, again, this is a preview, so it's not fully baked. So there's some rough edges that I see that I would like a little bit cleaned up, a little bit better for the developer. The end user is not going to know any of this stuff, so we could use the existing code that we can download right now, or we can use the web API stuff if we have the proper CRM organization set up. But the user wouldn't know anything about this.
You can tell that Mitch is an expert because he knows how to pronounce Xamarin.
Xamarin with a Z.
What was the pronunciation? You said ex-Marine?
Ex-Marine. Yeah, George did probably, yeah. So,
but
yeah,
is it fair to say to me, like, one of the most exciting parts, I suppose, is simplification of the protocol, in the sense that when SOAP returns something, you have to basically parse tons of XMLs before you even get to the data. Once you talk into OData endpoint, for example, we can do it from JavaScript, and then what you get in return is just straight JSON that requires virtually no decoding, if you will. It just goes straight into your JavaScript, and you can pick it up and deal with it.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the whole system uses the JSON protocol. So if you guys don't know, it's a JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So both the .NET and the JavaScript versions of this both use the JSON protocol to communicate. So you build up your objects either in JavaScript or C# or whatever your .NET language is in a JSON format, or what in .NET it's a JObject is what they call it. You build it up, you give it a type, say account. You specify your properties, say the account name, the address information. You pass it to the web API endpoint. It sees that, okay, this is an account. My operation that I'm getting is the verb is going to be a put, so that's going to be a create, and I'm going to take the data, and I know it's an account, and I'll just deserialize it and stick it into CRM as that. And the other calls kind of work the similar way. So depending on what the operation is, it will basically just you prepare your packet as JSON, and then basically send it to the web API, which puts it in CRM, which knows how to deal with it, and everything's good. So yeah, so very very little work on the part of the user besides knowing how to actually generate the packet. And with the JObject, it's kind of simple. It's just an object with properties that you set. So not a huge deal. People who've used early binding, as they say in previous versions of the Microsoft SDK, should be right at home.
Well, that sounds exciting. I mean, to me, that's the topic that I wanted to bring to developers community later this year and perhaps next year was accessing CRM from non.NET environments. And
yes.
It sounds like this web API will make this task much easier. So we'll be able to do, like JavaScript, we'll be able to do Python, PHP, Ruby, other languages, and do it in a straightforward manner without generating thousands lines of code dealing with the SOAP for breakfast.
That is the I'm not going to say roadmap. That is the direction it looks like they're headed. Right now, the authentication, for authenticated code, they're only supporting .NET. And again, this is a preview. So the JavaScript code that you'll see on the portal, and Joel, I'll give you links to all these, things for the show notes.
Right.
And then, the JavaScript right now is not authenticated. So you're going to have to be inside of CRM. So you're going to have to be as a web resource. But I can see that as they go through the process and prove out the technology, they'll add the other languages like George was talking about, things that are not .NET or not JavaScript internally to CRM. So we can communicate, say, from a WordPress site or from, maybe you create a Facebook app that does something fancy that uses Java to push into CRM. And it's always authentication. That's always the problem. The actual interaction with the data is almost trivial. It's really not, but the authentication is the heartache. I can't tell you how much time I've invested over the past 8 months trying to get mobile to connect to CRM in some way that doesn't drive me, to pull my hair out.
For sure.
Look, I did some talks on using authentication on mobile. I personally happen to like OAuth as a protocol. The reason is that credentials, as they entered by user, your application, whatever that is, never sees the credentials, so I can trust external applications to access my CRM data, knowing that it will be my end user who in the end enters their credentials and authorizes. That's as opposed to storing credentials in a config file or something like that. So that's to me the big plus of OAuth. I agree that the story was a bit convoluted, but now you can, for mobile Windows apps, you can download or NuGet ADL library, which takes care of that. For iOS and Android, you can go to GitHub and get the equivalent of authentication library. ADL stands for Active Directory Authentication Library. It's a great job done by Azure guys. So I thought it's getting easier. I agree that it was very difficult, but it's getting easier.
It is very much getting easier. So I got 2 points there. Let me talk about that specific one. The bigger problem we have right now as developers is the Azure team is moving so freaking fast that their documentation is not keeping up. Mm-hmm. That's just the end of the story right there. And so they are launching, you cannot count on one or two hands the number of releases that they have during their average week. It is tremendous. If you look at their portfolio, it is deep and it is wide, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. And the problem with that is you go to find a sample and then you go, oh, it doesn't work. Well, why doesn't it work? Well, it's because it was from a version that was 6 months ago. It's not 6 months ago. They've come up with 3 versions between now and then, and the new version has some peculiarities between how it did work then and how it works now because they made API changes. Like I found that out with ADL version 3. They had some issues. And it just happened that one of the Xamarin guys had a post on how to connect to SharePoint Online with Office 365 authentication, which is the same thing CRM uses. And it just happened. It came out on a Thursday, and it's exactly what I needed. And I plugged it in, and really and truly all it was I think the URL that you were authenticating against, the login URL, was different between what he did and what the other samples did. I've even gotten the Azure Mobile Services client to work with Xamarin and Office and CRM, and it's a configuration issue. I found out after a few hours worth of work. So all these things can be done, and they are getting better. And again, everybody's marching forward. We're actually making forward progress. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but we are going forward. The biggest drawback that I have, or that I don't like for OAuth, is the fact that I do not think it gives a great user experience. To throw up a web page in front of someone who's using a mobile app, to have them log in via the web, is not a good story in my mind. Because there are places in the world, George, being Australia, you know this, you don't have the internet. Well, with this stuff, if you don't have the internet, you don't have a connection to your app. Well, what happens then? You're absolutely, totally what we call screwed.
Isn't your app connecting to CRM? So by definition, if you can't connect to CRM, what's the point in authenticating?
Well, the point in authenticating is you have to get the user into your app somehow. So, and it's a design.
I see what you mean, but that's what cached credential storage is for. It does have the storage for that.
Yes, it's a design issue. So when you're offline or you're out of range or whatever it may be, because again, Joel, I think you've mentioned some of the mobile type scenarios that you've worked on, but hey, I've got a tablet app. I'm going to a construction site. I'm in the middle of concrete and steel. I don't have internet.
I had a client whose customers were like Walmart big box stores, and a lot of those your internet doesn't work in because they're big metal buildings.
Yeah, they're big metal buildings, so you get that. So you have to have, and again, it's not a technology issue. It's really just a design issue. It's like, okay, I am going to be in a place where the internet doesn't work. How do I handle that?
Yeah.
If the first thing that you do is throw up an authentication box, you've almost failed right there. You have to have the ability to work in an offline mode so that you can get the work done. Again, everybody's, they're going to expect it's not going to work the same way offline as it is online. So you have to have the facilities for allowing the work to be done, saving the work. When we get back to civilization and we see the internet, we can connect up either magically or manually and synchronize our work with the servers, and then download new stuff, etc. So this is all a design process. Again, it's not truly a technology issue; it's a process issue.
So I guess to tie this up, since we're running short on time here, if you're a CRM developer and you're looking at this thing, is this fully baked enough to use? And it's a preview, but is it fully baked enough to actually build production code on it right now?
You know, it's got some good points. I think the problem is it is preview. I've seen no kind of time frame for when it's actually going to be not preview. I mean, this could go on for months. And you know, probably if you look at the licensing, it's like you can't use this as production. So I mean, like it's even the Azure stuff, the ADOL stuff they're talking about, that's actually technically in preview in some places, depending on how you're doing certain things. So I think I would look at it. I would kind of experiment with the code, but I would let it get closer to being finished. Again, they've released several updates since they first announced the preview back in the early the preview of actually update 1 for CRM Online. So they are making progress, but I just don't know when it is, and I wouldn't want to put too much work into it other than just making sure you understand the technology, because sooner or later they're going to make a change that's going to break something, and you're going to be out of a boat.
And there will be changes as far as I know.
Yeah, there will. This is a preview.
Changes.
There will be changes, yes. Whether or not they're going to be breaking changes is totally unknown. But, you know, again, this is preview, so when you're working with beta software, just assume that something's going to break sooner or later, and, you know, you're going to fix it.
So only use it for your smoke and mirrors demos.
Pretty much, yeah.
And now it's time for George Doubinski's Developer's Minute. Listeners should not drive or operate power tools while listening to George Doubinski's Developer's Minute.
For today's episode, I'm gonna jump into the new territory, writing modern apps, authenticating user with the web service, public, static string, discovery authority, URI space service URL, carriage return, opening curly bracket, / use authentication parameters to send a request to the organization's endpoint, and carriage return, tab, / receive tenant information in the 401 challenge, carriage return, tab, Microsoft.identity.model.clients.activedirectory.authentication space parameters equal null, semicolon, carriage return, tab, HTTP web response space response equal null, semicolon, carriage return, try, opening curly bracket. I think that's all we have time for today.
Will George close his curly bracket? Find out next time on George Doubinski's Developer's Minute.
I would dare say that your Developer Minute is inspirational.
It inspires me to listen to different podcasts.
Well, or go get a cup of coffee, one of the two.
We learned things from the news. We had a rousing prize fight, CRM Online versus on-premise. We wrapped it up with some really good geeky developer stuff. George, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I give myself credit that I didn't use Web API to deliver the death blow in the fight, because that would be below the belt, considering that Web API is still in preview. But I personally, excited about all these new developments where we finally got easier to use API. We moving on the, cloud and enterprise. We go into Azure family under Scott Goo. So it's all exciting news ahead. There's a lot of things being developed, and we've been presented with some roadmaps recently. And someone joked during the call that saying, is it for the next 5 years or for the next 6 months? Because the amount of things coming in is just...
There's a ton of stuff coming. It's the most exciting time to be working with in the dynamic space that I've ever seen. Just with all the stuff.
Don't we say it every year?
Yeah, it just grows.
This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.